Okay, this lesson is on cells. And as you look at the first page here, you'll see some microscopic images of cells. Over to your left, you actually have some animal cells, cheek cells. And over to the right, you have a microscopic view of plant cells. Okay, so I've kind of already mentioned this. You need to know that there are two different types of cells that we are going to be talking about. To the left, we have our animal cell. That's what we have. And to the right, you have plant cells. A lot of the things that are inside of these cells are the same, but there are some differences, and we're going to go through those. Okay, so what is a cell? This is a review. The cell is the basic unit of life. It is the smallest structural and functional unit of an organism. So we and any living thing are made of these cells. So along with our very complex body, we have very tiny, teeny, you cannot even see them without a microscope, cells, and a whole bunch of those cells ultimately make up us, which is really awesome. And knowing that they're so tiny, you're going to find out that inside of these already tiny things are even more tiny things. So what is an animal cell? I've said before, we have them. An animal cell is the basic unit of life that is present in all animals. Makes sense? Same thing for a plant cell. The plant cell, which a plant is living, is the basic unit of life that is present in all plants. Okay, so you remember those, we talked about a cell being already a very tiny thing, the basic unit of life. But inside of that already tiny thing, we have even more tiny things called organelles. And if we look up the cell wrap, YouTube it, you can remember this by, it goes cells, they're made of organelles. An organelle is inside of a cell, and it has a special function inside that cell. So the nucleus is the first organelle that we're going to talk about. The nucleus is like the boss of the cell. It's going to direct the activity of the cell, and it also contains chromosomes with DNA. DNA is super important. It pretty much is a blueprint that makes us who we are. DNA is who we are. If you look, here's a picture, is the big boss in the middle of the cell, and it is surrounded by a nuclear membrane, and that separates the nucleus from the cytoplasm, which is all this blue stuff in the picture. So nucleus, very important, has DNA, which is just a blueprint of who we are. All right, I've already mentioned cytoplasm. This is the gel-like materials, the jelly inside the cell. It contains water and nutrients that the cell needs. So in this picture here, the cytoplasm would be all the light green. So we have the nucleus and then the cell membrane, which we are going to get to. So the cytoplasm is actually where all the organelles are suspended. The cell membrane, it's like the border patrol, is going to form the outer boundary of the cell. It allows only certain things to go in or out of the cell. Cell membrane, as you notice in this picture, is actually a very complex thing. And we're talking about microscopic things that you cannot see with your eyes unless you have a microscope. And they are so detailed. It's absolutely amazing what our body is made of. But the cell membrane is like the outer layer that lets things in and out. Only certain things. All right, mitochondria. Better write this down, start, underline it. You will see this again. Make sure you know it. The mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. It's going to break down food and release energy to the cell. This is the organelle in our cells that cellular respiration takes place. So the food that we eat, we're going to get the glucose and we are going to get the oxygen needed, and the mitochondria is going to convert it to energy, ATP. Super important. Need our energy. All right, the vacuole is going to be our storage area for the cell. Anything that needs to be stored, water, nutrients, things of that sort can be stored in the vacuole. Ribosomes, also important. These are the really tiny round particles composed of RNA. We're not going to get into RNA. But pretty much you need to know the ribosomes And if you look down here, are the cell's protein factories. Ribosomes are important to make proteins, and proteins are super important for us. Golgi apparatus. I think this is just the cool word, Golgi. These are layers of flattened sacs. You can think of like pancakes. They're going to process the proteins and stuff that the ribosomes make, and they're going to kind of ship them and package them the way they're supposed to be and ship them out to where they need to go in the cell. The endoplasmic reticulum, which we also call it ER, and there's smooth and rough ER. This is going to manufacture, process, and is going to transport chemical compounds for use inside and outside of the cell. And if you notice in this picture here, we have, this is considered rough ER. The one that has the ribosomes on them is considered rough. The ER that does not have ribosomes is considered smooth. Alright, so now we're going to get into an organelle that we don't have, but plants do. So the chloroplast is an organelle only found in plant cells, not us. This is where photosynthesis occurs. The chloroplast, well, what's in it, chlorophyll, is the reason that plants are green. We're not green. We don't have chloroplast. Another thing that plants have that we do not is a cell wall. Now, if you notice, in this picture, plant cells have the cell wall, which is the outermost of the plant cell, but they also have a cell membrane, just a little bit inside. The cell wall is used to kind of help maintain the shape and provide a barrier. The cell membrane still serves the same purpose. The cell membrane lets things in and out. We don't have one. We have a cell membrane, but we don't have a cell wall. Okay, so here is a Venn diagram to kind of help you out if maybe you got confused. So plant and animal cells have a lot in common. They both have the mitochondria, super important for animal cells. We have the Golgi. You may see this as Golgi Apparatus, Golgi bodies. If you just see Golgi, know it. They both have an ER. They both have a nucleus. They both have cytoplasm. They both have ribosomes, but there are some differences. We've talked about the cell wall and the chloroplast. You definitely need to know that these are two things that animal cells do not. Now, they both have vacuoles, but the plant cell is going to have just one large vacuole, whereas animals, and actually they do have more, they have more than one. They have small vacuoles. They're not as big as the plant. And remember, the plant only has one big one. And flagella, we're not really going to get into in this unit. But note that they both have flagella, but the plant only has the gametes. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in another unit.